Here's part 1 expanded into a single fast-paced paragraph of 1,000 words, keeping it simple, emotional, and suitable for YouTube storytelling audiences. Lily loved her garden more than anything else in the world. It was her secret corner, filled with the colors of tulips, roses, and daisies, where the morning sun painted golden streaks across the soft green grass, and the air smelled of fresh earth and blossoms. She often came here to think, to breathe, to escape the noise of her small town and the constant demands of teaching. On this particular morning, she was arranging a fresh batch of flowers, carefully aligning petals and trimming stems, when she noticed a figure at the gate. It was Ethan, one of her students, someone she had watched grow from a shy, awkward boy into a thoughtful, serious young man, always polite, always trying to do the right thing. His tall frame looked hesitant as he shifted from foot to foot, and she felt an unusual flutter in her chest, a mix of curiosity and concern. "Hi, Miss Lily," he said softly, almost nervously, and she noticed the slight tremor in his voice. Lily blinked, surprised. She hadn't expected anyone, least of all him. He paused, clearly gathering courage, and she gestured toward the bench beneath the old oak tree. "Of course, Ethan. Come in." As he walked slowly through the garden, the morning breeze lifted stray strands of his hair, and Lily noticed the nervous energy in his movements. It was unusual, and it made her heart beat a little faster, though she couldn't understand why. Ethan sat down beside her, careful to keep a respectful distance, his eyes fixed on the flowers but darting occasionally toward her, searching for some unspoken permission or signal. The garden, usually quiet, suddenly felt alive in a different way, as if it too sensed the tension between them, the unspoken weight of this visit. He took a deep breath, and for a moment, silence filled the space between them. Lily wondered what he was thinking, why he had chosen this moment, this place. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper, I need to tell you something important." His words hung in the air like fragile glass, trembling but strong, and Lily's heart skipped. She didn't move, didn't interrupt, sensing that this moment demanded patience, respect, and full attention. The flowers seemed to sway gently as if agreeing with her instinct to wait. Ethan swallowed, his fingers fidgeting with the edge of his sleeve, and then he looked up, eyes wide, earnest, searching her face for any sign of judgment. "I've always respected you," he said, the words simple yet heavy with meaning, "more than anyone else." Lily's pulse quickened, and for a moment, she felt caught between pride, surprise, and something deeper she didn't fully understand. He paused again, gathering courage like a runner ready to leap, and continued, "Anne, I've realized something about myself. I care about you, more than just as my teacher." Lily felt a rush of conflicting emotions. She was proud of his honesty, concerned about the implications, and yet a strange warmth spread through her chest. The sincerity in his eyes, the nervous yet steady way he spoke, made it impossible to dismiss his words. She remembered the many small moments over the past year, the way he would linger after class with thoughtful questions, the shy smiles, the genuine kindness he always extended to everyone, and how he had confided in her about little troubles she never knew he carried. Each memory pressed into her heart, intertwining with the new revelation, and she felt a mixture of admiration, concern, and an unexpected fluttering she wasn't prepared to name. Ethan's voice trembled slightly as he added, "I didn't plan to say this, but I couldn't keep it inside anymore. You make everything feel lighter. Being around you, especially here, it feels like home. I just needed you to know." Lily's breath caught. She hadn't expected such a confession, and yet the honesty in his words made her feel honored, conflicted, and strangely connected to him. The garden, with its soft sunlight, rustling leaves, and delicate fragrance, seemed to wrap around them, holding this fragile, precious moment. She wanted to respond, to find the right words that would acknowledge his courage without giving false hope, and yet she remained silent, letting the weight of his emotions settle between them. The tension was almost tangible, the kind that makes hearts beat faster and thoughts scatter, yet there was a calm in it, a beauty in someone speaking so openly from the heart. Ethan exhaled, a mixture of relief and anxiety, knowing he had laid himself bare, and Lily sensed the vulnerability behind his words, the bravery it took for a young man to admit feelings that were forbidden in a way yet completely genuine. For several moments, they just sat there, the quiet punctuated by birdsong and the distant hum of the town awakening. Lily looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not a student, not a boy, but a young man with feelings, courage, and a longing she hadn't fully noticed before. The air was electric yet soft, full of possibilities and questions that neither dared speak aloud. And then, just as the morning breeze seemed to settle, rustling leaves around them like whispers of encouragement, Ethan said quietly, almost shyly, "I hope I'm not overstepping. I just had to tell you." Lily's heart ached with a mixture of emotions, pride, surprise, care, and a confusing warmth she couldn't name, and she realized that whatever happened next, this moment would mark a turning point. The garden had never felt so alive, so intimate, so aware of the human heart, and Lily knew that this was only the beginning of something delicate, emotional, and unforgettable. She reached out, almost instinctively, brushing a leaf from the bench between them, a small gesture of acknowledgement, and Ethan smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and continued nervousness. The flowers swayed, the sunlight seemed warmer, and Lily understood that the ordinary garden had become extraordinary, holding secrets, confessions, and the first fragile threads of connection. And as the breeze carried the scent of roses and tulips around them, Lily felt a mixture of anticipation and worry, unsure of how to navigate the truth of his feelings, yet certain that the morning had changed everything. Here's part 2 expanded into a single fast-paced paragraph of 1,000 words, keeping it emotional, romantic, and fully clean for YouTube storytelling. Ethan's words lingered in the garden, heavy and sincere, and Lily could feel the shift in the air around them, the way the morning sunlight seemed to flicker through the leaves, as if it too wanted to witness what was happening. She looked at him closely, noticing the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands fidgeted with the edge of his sleeve, and the quiet bravery shining in his eyes. There was a pause, almost a heartbeat of silence, where the world outside the garden seemed to vanish, leaving only the two of them and the soft scent of roses and earth, mingling with the faint sound of distant birds. Ethan cleared his throat, his voice steadying with effort, and he continued, "I know it might sound sudden, and maybe it's wrong, but I can't ignore what I feel anymore. You mean more to me than just my teacher. I care about you, a lot." Lily's chest tightened, her mind racing as she absorbed the confession. She had always been careful with her emotions, aware of boundaries, responsibilities, and the roles people played in each other's lives, yet hearing him speak so openly made her heart respond in ways she hadn't expected. She remembered the many moments they had shared, him asking questions after class, the way he would linger for just a few seconds longer when everyone else had left, the subtle gestures of kindness he offered without expecting anything in return. Each memory now carried a new weight, a tenderness she hadn't allowed herself to recognize before. Ethan shifted slightly, his gaze holding hers, searching for understanding, for acceptance, for acknowledgement that his words were received with honesty, not judgment. "I didn't plan this," he admitted, "I didn't even know I would say it today. But something about being here, in the garden with you, made me realize I can't keep it inside. I had to tell you. You make everything feel calmer, better, and I needed you to know." Lily felt her heart flutter, a mixture of warmth and anxiety weaving through her chest. She wanted to speak, to offer comfort, reassurance, or even guidance, but she also recognized the importance of letting him express himself fully, of witnessing his courage without interruption. She watched his lips move, the honesty in every word, the vulnerability, the way he seemed to shrink slightly yet still hold his ground, and she felt a strange, undeniable connection, something tender and intimate yet perfectly appropriate in its emotional depth. The sunlight shifted, casting soft patterns across the grass and the bench where they sat, and for a moment, Lily felt suspended between past, present, and a future she couldn't predict. She remembered how he had grown, how his quiet determination, his thoughtful nature, and his respect for others had always made him special in subtle ways, but hearing him speak like this revealed a depth of feeling she hadn't anticipated. Ethan exhaled, a mixture of relief and continued nervousness, and he added softly, "I understand if this is too much. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to hear it." His honesty made the air between them feel sacred, charged with emotion yet gentle, like the calm before a storm that is more about awakening than destruction. Lily finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady, carrying the weight of her attention and care. "Ethan, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. It's not easy to say what you just said, and I admire that courage." She paused, choosing her words carefully, aware that the path ahead was delicate. "You've given me a lot to think about. What you've shared, it matters to me." Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension ebbing just a little, though the vulnerability in his expression remained, a raw openness that made Lily's chest ache with empathy. The garden seemed to breathe with them, the soft rustle of leaves and the faint scent of flowers wrapping the moment in a cocoon of intimacy that was neither inappropriate nor overwhelming, simply human and heartfelt. Lily remembered her own feelings, how she had noticed his attentiveness, the small smiles that lingered when he thought no one was looking, the care he showed for the people and world around him, and now those impressions merged with this moment into something that felt significant, fragile, and real. She wanted to be kind without encouraging something that couldn't yet exist, to honor his honesty while protecting both of them from the complications their emotions might bring. "Ethan," she said finally, "what you've shared is meaningful, and I want you to know I hear you. That's all anyone can ask for sometimes, just to be heard." He nodded, and for a moment they simply sat together, the silence full of understanding, respect, and unspoken possibilities. Lily felt her heart opening in ways she hadn't anticipated, the simple act of witnessing his courage stirring emotions she hadn't allowed herself to name. She realized that this garden, which had always been a sanctuary for her thoughts and reflections, had now become a witness to a moment of emotional truth, a place where two people's hearts had connected in honesty and vulnerability. The soft light shifted again as the breeze moved through the branches, carrying petals and scents around them like gentle applause, and Lily understood that this moment would mark a turning point, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle, enduring way that would shape their relationship forever. Ethan's eyes met hers again, filled with hope and uncertainty, and Lily felt a mixture of admiration, care, and cautious excitement. The world outside the garden could wait. Here, in this moment, there was honesty, trust, and a fragile, beautiful bond forming. She reached out instinctively, lightly brushing a stray leaf from the bench, a small gesture that conveyed acknowledgement, respect, and encouragement without words. Ethan smiled faintly, relief and nervousness mingling in the curve of his lips, and the garden seemed to hold its breath with them, carrying the weight of unspoken emotions, possibilities, and the tender realization that hearts could speak even when words were tentative. The distant sound of life beyond the garden, birds calling, leaves rustling, the faint hum of the town awakening, reminded them both of reality, but for a few precious moments, that world did not matter. Lily understood that whatever came next, this confession had created a connection that was sincere, fragile, and unforgettable. And as the morning sun continued to climb, casting gentle light across the flowers and the bench where they sat, both Lily and Ethan sensed that this was the start of something meaningful, a story of hearts speaking from truth, a moment of human vulnerability and tenderness that neither of them would ever forget. Here's part 3 expanded into a single fast-paced paragraph of 1,000 words, keeping it emotionally rich, romantic, and fully clean for YouTube storytelling. Lily sat in the garden, letting Ethan's words sink in, her fingers lightly brushing the petals of a nearby flower, feeling the softness of the moment and the weight of the truth he had just shared. The morning sun was higher now, spilling warmth across the grass, highlighting the subtle blush on her cheeks, and she realized that this quiet corner, which had always been her sanctuary, had transformed into a place where hearts spoke freely, where courage met care, and where connection was almost tangible in the air. Ethan remained seated beside her, fidgeting slightly, the earnest expression in his eyes holding a mix of hope, vulnerability, and restrained excitement, and she could see that he had bared his emotions completely, leaving nothing behind, offering her a piece of his heart without hesitation. Lily's mind raced as she tried to balance the sudden rush of emotions within her, pride in his honesty, admiration for his courage, concern for the complexity of the situation, and an unexpected warmth she hadn't anticipated feeling. She remembered every small gesture, every smile, every question he had asked over the past months, each now magnified in significance, each moment revealing the sincerity and depth of his character, and she felt an almost dizzying sense of closeness, a bond that had been quietly growing but had never been named until now. Ethan's voice broke the silence again, soft and careful, as he admitted, "I wasn't sure if I should say anything. I kept wondering if you would even listen, if I was making a mistake, but I couldn't ignore it any longer. I care about you, and I wanted you to know." Lily took a deep breath, the air scented with blooming flowers and fresh earth filling her lungs, grounding her, giving her space to process the honesty in front of her. She realized that this wasn't a fleeting crush or a simple admiration, it was a heartfelt confession, a moment of bravery that demanded respect and careful thought. She looked at Ethan, really looked at him, and saw the depth of emotion, the vulnerability, and the sincerity that made it impossible to dismiss his feelings lightly. Her chest ached with empathy and a strange tenderness as she considered how young he was, how thoughtful, how much trust he had placed in her by speaking so openly, and she knew that the right response required both kindness and clarity. "Ethan," she said finally, her voice gentle but steady, "thank you for trusting me with your feelings. It means a lot that you could be honest, and I want you to know I hear you completely." Her words seemed to relax him slightly, but the tension hadn't fully left, his eyes still searched hers, silently asking what she felt, hoping for some reassurance, some sign that his honesty had been received without judgment. Lily reached out instinctively, lightly touching the edge of a flower petal, a gesture small but meaningful, acknowledging his courage while maintaining the delicate balance of boundaries. The garden around them felt alive in a different way now, each breeze, each rustle of leaves, each soft bird call enhancing the intimacy of the moment, creating a sense of shared understanding and quiet magic that neither could ignore. Ethan exhaled slowly, the relief of confession mingling with the nervous anticipation of her reaction, and Lily felt a mixture of pride and protectiveness, realizing that whatever unfolded from this moment forward needed careful attention, patience, and thoughtfulness. She reflected on the countless small interactions that had brought them to this point, the brief glances that lingered too long to be purely casual, the gentle humor shared in class, the way he had confided in her about little worries, each moment now taking on a new weight and significance, painting a portrait of a young man whose heart was as earnest as it was brave. "I want to be honest with you too," she continued softly, her voice carrying the warmth of genuine care. "I value our connection, and I feel a lot of respect and fondness for you, but we also have to be mindful of our roles, of everything around us." Ethan nodded, understanding the caution in her words, the boundaries she gently placed, yet there was still hope in his expression, a subtle persistence that made her heart both flutter and ache. They sat together in silence for several minutes, allowing the garden's calm to envelop them, the stillness speaking more than words could, the quiet moments building trust, intimacy, and a tentative bond that felt both delicate and profound. Lily noticed the small movements Ethan made, the slight shift of his body, the way his hands rested lightly on his knees, the occasional glance at the flowers, each gesture reflecting his inner turmoil and his desire to remain respectful while still being emotionally present. She realized that their connection had been quietly forming over months, almost imperceptibly, through kindness, shared moments, and mutual understanding, and now it had emerged in a fully honest, heartfelt way, raw and powerful yet gentle. The sunlight danced through the branches above, casting patterns on the grass, and Lily felt the weight of this moment, the importance of nurturing it with care, not rushing, not judging, just allowing it to exist with honesty and respect. Ethan finally spoke again, quieter this time, almost as if afraid to break the fragile magic. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to hear me. That's all I wanted. Lily's heart softened further, touched by his humility, the purity of his intention, and the sincerity that radiated from him. She understood that what he had offered her was a gift, a piece of his heart shared freely, and she wanted to honor it fully, acknowledging his courage while gently holding space for what was appropriate and safe. The garden seemed to embrace them, the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle scent of blossoms creating a sanctuary where emotions could be expressed openly, where honesty could flourish, and where two hearts could meet without pressure, expectation, or haste. Lily felt a strange mixture of relief, anticipation, and tenderness, knowing that this moment had changed something between them forever, creating a bond that was both fragile and enduring, delicate yet meaningful. She smiled faintly, a small gesture of reassurance, while Ethan returned the smile, his own relief and nervous excitement mirrored in the curve of his lips. For the first time, she allowed herself to simply feel the connection, without trying to define it or control it, understanding that some things were best experienced in their own time, in their own quiet, natural unfolding. And as the garden around them continued its gentle rhythm, birds singing, leaves swaying, sunlight shifting, Lily and Ethan remained seated side by side, hearts quietly aligned, emotions raw yet contained, knowing that the honesty they had shared today was the beginning of something meaningful, a bond built on courage, respect, and the gentle understanding that speaking from the heart could change everything, even in silence, even without immediate answers, even in the delicate balance of affection and restraint. Here's part 4 expanded into a single fast-paced paragraph of 1,000 words, keeping it emotional, romantic, and fully clean for YouTube storytelling. The afternoon sun had begun its gentle descent, casting a golden glow across Lily's garden, and the world outside seemed distant, muted, as if the space around the bench where she and Ethan sat existed in its own quiet universe, filled with the scents of blooming flowers, the soft rustle of leaves, and the warmth of honest hearts meeting. Lily watched Ethan carefully, noticing the subtle shifts in his posture, the way his eyes searched hers for understanding, the small, tentative smiles that betrayed his nervous excitement, and she felt a deep mixture of admiration, care, and the unnameable flutter that came from witnessing such sincere vulnerability. Ethan, she said softly, you've given me a lot to think about, and I want you to know that I truly appreciate your honesty. It takes courage to speak from the heart like that, and I respect it deeply. He nodded, relief washing over his face, a faint smile spreading, yet his eyes held a quiet hope that made her chest ache with empathy and something more tender, a soft awareness of the fragile connection forming between them. The breeze moved gently through the garden, carrying petals across the path and scattering dappled light onto the grass, and Lily realized that this garden, once just a peaceful refuge for her thoughts, had now become a witness to a moment of emotional truth, a place where trust, bravery, and feelings intertwined in a delicate balance. Ethan exhaled, a mix of nervous energy and relief, and said, I know it's complicated. I don't expect anything, not now, not soon. I just wanted to be honest, to let you know how I feel. That's all. Lily smiled faintly, touched by the maturity behind his words, the careful way he navigated a confession that could have been reckless but instead was heartfelt and considerate, and she understood that what he had given her was a gift, an offering of trust and sincerity that deserved respect and patience. She thought about the months they had shared in class, the small interactions that had seemed ordinary at the time but now carried new significance, the thoughtful questions, the subtle gestures of kindness, the moments when he lingered longer than necessary not out of obligation but because he valued her presence, and it all came together to form a quiet, emotional tapestry that made her heart swell with care and admiration. "Ethan," she said, choosing her words with care, "I value you deeply. I feel honored that you can be this open with me, and I want you to know I will always listen, and I will always care about you. But we also have to be mindful of our lives, our responsibilities, and the boundaries that guide us." He listened intently, nodding, the mix of patience and hope in his gaze showing that he understood, yet there was still a quiet yearning, a gentle insistence that made her realize that his feelings were both sincere and enduring, not fleeting, and that their connection, delicate as it was, had the potential to grow in meaningful ways over time. They sat together in the fading sunlight, sharing the silence that spoke volumes, the air between them charged with emotion yet gentle, filled with trust, understanding, and the tentative promise of something more, something slow, careful, and heartfelt. Lily noticed the small details, the way his eyes softened when he glanced at her, the way his hands rested lightly on his knees, the subtle way his presence seemed to fill the space without overwhelming it, and she felt the quiet, profound reality that human connection could exist in honesty, without rush, without pressure, simply in the sharing of hearts. As they spoke of everyday things, books, the garden, their plans for the coming days, the words carried a weight beyond their surface meaning, a subtext of emotion, care, and respect that deepened the bond in ways neither could ignore. Lily realized that this moment, simple as it seemed, was extraordinary, two people acknowledging feelings with honesty, patience, and gentleness, creating a space where hearts could be vulnerable and emotions could breathe freely. The light continued to shift, casting a warm glow over the flowers and bench, and Lily felt a sense of calm excitement, a recognition that what had begun in the garden would remain a quiet, enduring memory, a first chapter in a story of emotional intimacy and mutual respect that could grow at its own pace. Ethan's voice broke the gentle silence again, softer now. "Thank you for listening, for understanding, for caring. That means everything to me." Lily smiled, her heart full, realizing that this bond, though complicated and tender, was genuine and rare, built on honesty, courage, and mutual respect, and she felt a sense of anticipation for how it might evolve, knowing that patience and understanding were as important as the emotions themselves. They lingered in the garden until twilight, talking quietly, laughing softly at small jokes, sharing moments of comfortable silence, letting the evening wrap around them like a gentle blanket, knowing that what had begun here, this delicate, heartfelt connection, was something to be nurtured carefully, thoughtfully, and with reverence for the honesty that had made it possible. The flowers swayed as the breeze picked up, the scent of roses and fresh earth filling the air, and Lily understood that this day, this conversation, and this quiet confession would remain in her heart forever, a turning point where trust, courage, and emotional openness had created a space for connection that was both mature and beautiful, a bond that could grow slowly, naturally, and meaningfully, guided by patience, respect, and genuine care. As the last light of the sun touched the tops of the trees, Ethan finally rose to leave, pausing to look back with a faint, hopeful smile, and Lily returned it, her own heart warmed, her mind filled with the quiet understanding that this was only the beginning of a story that would unfold with care, honesty, and the gentle rhythm of hearts speaking from truth, a story that had started in a garden, under sunlight and soft leaves, with words that had been spoken bravely and received tenderly, and would continue to grow in the spaces between them, patiently, beautifully, and with emotional depth that neither would forget. If you want, I can now create a fully polished YouTube-ready version of all 4 parts, with subtle hooks at the start of each part, emotional cliffhangers, and narration-friendly pacing that keeps viewers engaged for the full story while staying fully clean and monetization safe. Do you want me to do that? If you want, I can now write part 4 in the same style, 1,000 words, fast-paced, emotional, one paragraph, giving a satisfying and heartfelt conclusion perfect for YouTube storytelling. Do you want me to do that next? If you want, I can now write part 3 in the same style, 1,000 words, fast-paced, emotional, one paragraph, ready for YouTube storytelling, so the story continues seamlessly. Do you want me to do that? If you want, I can also expand part 2 in the same style, keeping it fast-paced, emotional, and exactly one paragraph of 1,000 words, so the full story flows seamlessly for YouTube narration. Do you want me to do that next?